Welcome to the Indigenous21 Podcast, where we discuss modern Native narratives in the 21st century. Sami vaya yan Hopi Matsiwa, but you can call me JD.
Nakivensi and Matsiwa, but you can call me Dee Dee.
So for our first podcast, we wanted to introduce you all to a little bit more of what our background is, what our history is, and what led us to the point of wanting to launch this media platform. We are both Hopi. We both come from the Hopi reservation. We currently have lived in Tucson for the past decade, a little bit more than that. But what we wanted to share with you guys is our, I guess you can call it our success story, because for our whole childhoods growing up, we lived out on the Hopi res. And it being a very isolated community, we just wanted to share our thoughts in what was our success in transitioning from res life and knowing nothing else but that throughout our adolescence into living into a very urbanized area where there's way more diversity. And in terms of me living with my disability and my sister's career goals and aspirations and what led us to that.
So a lot of more opportunities, diversity, both on the positive side, the
cultural sacrifices,
the barriers that we had to overcome. That was really hard, but it all turned out into it's our journey basically, and we just tried to roll with the punches as we were going through some of the hard times, and we just went ahead and made it work. We found a formula that was helpful, not only just to ourselves, both him and I, but also to our family. Our mother, she was able to get onto this program to finish out her teaching, her bachelor's degree. She all throughout all of our lives growing up, she was taking classes during the summer, trying to work towards getting her degree. And she was raising 3 children. And that was basically her process towards continuing her education. And it got to a point to where I was already graduated from high school. How old were you?
I was around 15, going on 16 by the time I moved on. You and Mom moved on first.
Right. So basically she found this program that from the Tohono O'odham Nation that was accepting scholarships to Indigenous teachers that or Indigenous people that were pursuing a degree in education. And because what I think what the criteria was, you had to have at least up to so many credits and they would cover the rest of your schooling. So basically what she did was she applied for it and she got accepted. And little did she know that I was already looking for something opportunities, my own education opportunity, because during that time I was a single mother, very new mother. I was, reliant on just starting out with having to find my way in the world, and I didn't want to be reliant upon, I guess, federal assistance like food stamps, medical assistance, and that's I guess so that too.
And I guess really the big thing with my sister's narrative is wanting to break from the systemic cycle that happens on reservations with young mothers to where, and not necessarily that it's a bad thing, but we wanted something.
I just wanted something more. I wanted to be able to be self-sufficient for myself because I wanted
at a faster rate.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, not only at a faster rate, but just that was my entire goal, was to be able to provide for myself and my son on my own. I know there's always going to be, as far as being a Hopi, there's always going to be help from family and all that stuff. And that's fine. It's not that I wasn't against that, but our parents have always given us these life lessons of being self-sufficient and working towards something and being a contributor to society, rather than just living things as is and feeling woe is me and being heavily reliant on assistance programs. So that just wanting to achieve that for myself, and my main concern was my son.
That was your driving force.
Yeah, he was my major driving force. So I had already applied to PCC, went ahead and was already thinking about going back to school. And when I heard that she got accepted, it was just like,
I'll do it too.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, we'll go ahead and move down and let's go.
Whereas my story, so I was born with a genetic hereditary condition. Hereditary meaning that anybody who's a family member of me is carriers of the same gene. I just so happened to be the lottery winner in where I was born with a condition known as albinism, specifically oculocutaneous albinism. So growing up at home with this condition, it made me feel, she's always saying how much she has seen our home community. My family members have always been very accepting of me. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, my personal thoughts, and when I was little, really, I didn't really care. The kids didn't really care. But then as I began to get older, and especially learning about the history, that you hear of white people and natives, then I started, to kind of resent what I looked like. And it really was the main reason why, and I did not want to move down to this city while I was, in the middle of high school, because I did know that I would be sacrificing, and within our community, it's the men who are very heavily active within the spiritual realm of ceremonies and doings that we have within our villages. And it's a yearly thing, there's no break periods. There's always something happening spiritually within our community that the men are responsible for taking care of. So because I would be moving away down here, which is basically a whole day's drive away, I knew that I would be losing that connection. I knew that I would not be able to participate in a lot of things. My mother, on the other hand, there is a special school down here, the Arizona School for the Blind, and it's a deaf school, but they have their own separate department. So because of my condition, I also was born legally blind. I have a visual impairment. I have a disability. Mm-hmm. And my mother wanted me to have access to more opportunities in learning how to navigate the real world with my disabilities. And so she knew that this school...
It's the continued teaching of being self-sufficient.
Yeah.
She didn't want you to be considered, quote unquote, disabled or disadvantaged.
Yeah. So, I initially did not want to move down here, but once I came down, I was introduced to so many other Native kids from the reservations. There's a lot of reservation kids that come to the school for those purposes, and learning how to be independent.
And here's the crux of all that. So my mother and I moved down here first. We had already established ourselves, gotten an apartment, and we also moved down with somebody else from the reservation that also got accepted. And her name is Mildred Yavella. Hi, Millie. She journeyed with us down here. So we all basically were down here to support one another. So it was really neat. We basically took that whole family support system that we grew up with out home and brought it down here,
moved it
and kind of reassembled it. And not only did she join us, but also we had another member from our village that came down at the same time. And she was going to school.
College as well.
So she ended up moving in with us. So there were 4 of us, and the apartment that we're living in right now, it's the same apartment that we started out back then. And it's just a 1-bedroom plus a loft. So two Millie and Natal, they were sharing the 1-bedroom, and then mom were on the loft. Yeah. So that's just how it was. It was to help cut down on living expenses.
But then, coming from the Native community too, it's like we have 1-bedroom trailers or 2-room houses. And it's like everybody's used to sharing that space. Everybody's used to, we don't care if we have to share the bed with one another.
If somebody has to sleep on the floor, on a bedroll, we're going to go ahead and make it work. Always having relatives
over, and you always find a way to fit,
Right.
Yeah.
So basically from that, it just being us and us being established down here already, the only thing that needed to happen was my brother to move down here with our dad. Mm-hmm. So basically from there, what it ended up being was that our whole family ended up moving down here. Now, Millie and Natal, they ended up being going out into their own endeavors and following their own path, separating from basically the pack.
After the first year or so,
to speak. So they found their own way. They were wanting to live on their own and found ways to do that. And so basically it just became our whole family unit. Again, the only person that got left behind was our sister, our older sister, and her children. But that's because she didn't want to come down, and she already had jobs and careers that she was having out there. She didn't want to move the kids away, from out there. And that was her choice, and which was fine, even though we were always really encouraging, like, you should just move down here with us.
Yeah.
Which
dad still is.
Yeah. Our dad was the main driver for pushing.
He wanted all his kids to be. Yeah.
My dad's biggest dream was for us to all be in a big house,
big mansion, like
at least together. A 5-bedroom, so that we can all fit in there, and then we just support one another. So that was pretty. And basically, so the whole dynamic of, and this is what most families at home don't think about, is, I guess I haven't seen that done before, or at least nobody that I spoke to.
Where everybody comes out together,
where the whole family basically just migrates down in order for whoever's going to school to provide that support, so that we found a formula that increased our chances of success.
And because, you do always hear about relatives, and I was just bringing up with you, like, the other day, I was like, I thought so-and-so, saying you're connected with everybody on Facebook from at home. And then you see them posting a status and, like, they're living at home again. Oh, I thought they were at school. Didn't they say they were going away and they were pursuing this? And then it's like a couple months go by, and then, like, they're living at home again. And not to fault them for that, because, life happens, and there's going to be instances that come up. You just have to make the choices you have to make. But, like
he said earlier, too, it all goes back to those cultural and ceremonial religious responsibilities that you feel to yourself, that are highly emphasized, not only for yourself, but your parents, the community, whatever village you're from.
That is something that we did sacrifice, and that's something that our uncles brought up to us, is you pursue what you want to pursue, because we know that eventually what you're going to benefit from in your education is you're going to give that back, and it's going to, start something to where you're in a position to be able to provide something else for other people in the future.
Right.
So we did have to sacrifice, I'm not going to make it out for this ceremony. I'm not going to make it out for this baby naming. I'm not going to,
the most that we could do at that point was to send financial support. So my mom was able to go ahead and send money out to family members for any ceremony or dance or anything that was happening, to provide that support in our absence. That way they could at least buy groceries for what was going to be needed for the pre-preparations, anything like that. So we did our best to make our contributions from afar. And there were, we were, not to say that we never ever went home. We were able to.
We didn't want to.
Yeah, we were. It was just that hard decision of, are we able to? Do we have the finances?
Yes, I was going to say, it also came down to finances, because, we got to make rent, something that isn't common out on the reservation. People usually don't pay rent. Rent is a thing, the 2 cars that you and mom both had, and then it's like the groceries on top of that. And then my nephew not being in school yet, we had to pay for his daycare,
Right. And even that, like you said, with the cars, we had our vehicles, but back then they weren't very reliable.
They weren't brand new cars, they were res cars, so you had to maintenance them.
A whole 8-hour drive climbing the hills north in the desert,
with no AC.
With no AC, that was hard. and so it was just all of that, and like I said, taking into account that as much as it pained us and as much as we really, really wanted to be there, unfortunately, those were the sacrifices that we had to make in order for us to succeed. And as far as academics go, getting our schooling finished. And for you, I mean,
it was all a matter. What this migration did for me is it really changed my perspective on myself toward my condition. Being that, again, I mentioned before, I met other people from the res. A good handful of those people also had albinism. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people from Navajo and, a few of us from Hopi who have this condition, and people know who we are. So it was really nice for me to make those connections and like, oh, you get what I'm going through. Like, you understand. And being that it's a whole school filled with people who can't see that well, I wasn't as embarrassed to, I'll take the ginormous sheet of paper with the large print on it. I won't stand out from everybody because everybody else is doing it here. Yes, I'll go ahead and use this magnifying glass in order to see my work, which is something that I never did out home because nobody else was doing that. Nobody else had to go up and to the front of the classroom to stand literally in the front of the chalkboard in order to read it.
Or have bigger sheets.
Yeah, like twice the size of normal size paper in order to have big enough font for me to see it. Those accommodations that were set into place for me at my school in elementary and at the high school at home, I hated doing that because it made me stand out.
Or even as far as the little things too that you wouldn't think would it be a big issue was you're having to put on sunblock.
My hat, my shades outside.
Shades.
And
oh my gosh, when we were younger, dude, this guy did not want to put on a hat.
And I always liked to play outside.
Sunscreen. Yes.
And going to the fields, and I'd come home beat red.
He would come out beat red.
Amazing. I don't know if I have skin cancer or not. But
our mother would get after him, but I think it was more because she was like, you're hurting yourself without realizing it. You're hurting yourself. And so when he came down here, it was a lot more easy for him to understand going through your schooling, right?
Well, on top of that too, the staff that they hired, there were visually impaired teachers that I was learning from, where in the past I've always had, certain people who would travel throughout the whole northern region. They'd go to different reservation schools and meet with kids that had these visual impairments, that had low vision. And it was people who were sighted. So like, I'm not going to listen to someone like, you're not going to tell me how to,
identity.
You don't know this experience. So why should I listen to you? And I'm going to figure it out on my own. Whereas coming down here and getting to know other people who also shared the same disability, it really made me more open to, okay, like, this is stuff that I can do. And you've seen me grow more confident in using a white cane outside in public. And it's like,
right.
Whereas at home on the reservation, I would have never done that.
Never used it, which is even where the terrain was a lot more uneven and a lot more unpredictable. And he never used it. But when we came down here and then like when we visit out home, he had no problem.
Yeah. But even learning Braille was something that I did, So it was, our story of success in, transitioning to this new environment and really embracing like, this is what advantages we can have down here. And then eventually seeing this is where back on the home reservation, this is where they still need to catch up. That's where I think, we wanted to incorporate not just urban native narratives, but we want to network and collaborate with other voices out there. Whatever your story is, we want to network with other native people.
There's going to be a lot of openness to it, honesty to it. We're going to try not to censor anybody too much. There's going to be differences in opinion, differences in perspectives. And that's because we all have our own stories. We all have our own journeys that we went through, but we all have a right to be heard. And rather than, like he mentioned before, as far as, somebody coming out to him and advocating for him and showing him the ways of how to navigate of being blind or sensitive to sunlight, from somebody who's never even lived it. Our hope is to open the doors and opportunities and create a space for our own selves to be the driver of those narratives rather than having somebody else outside of our communities come in and document us like we're specimens.
Or props.
Or props, exactly. Yeah. So you know what? Instead of being the prop, we're propping ourselves up. So that's our hope for this whole for the Indigenous21 podcast. And we just hope to see it grow into something bigger. We do already have plans in the works for something bigger, but this is the first stepping stone.
Yeah. And the goal right now, I just create dialogue with our audience, audience participation.
Right.
We want to hear from you, like engage in these discussions. We don't want it to be, this is what we say and
right.
have it be
No,
way.
We're not the authority on anything. These are just our own opinions. And
our stories.
Yeah. Please don't take what we say to heart as much as possible. There's going to be disagreements. Our whole process is going to be, it's going to be thought provoking, feeling provoking. And there's no harm in that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one thing, coming from the Indigenous community is there's that groupthink mentality where you have to go with the main crowd. And there's always the, what about this? What about that? And that's what we want to provide opportunity
Bring
for,
it on, all on. Yeah, let's talk about it. And we hope you get to join us and talk about it as well. Share in your comments or send us an email. You can reach us at indigenous21media@gmail.com. And we'll go ahead and put a description of the email. We'll have it listed.
Video responses are kind of like old school on YouTube. We're going to be posting this video up on YouTube just as another platform to access this material on. And Anchor. Be sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen to just the audio version on Anchor. And I'll go ahead and put the link in the description box down below as well. For those of you guys listening on Anchor, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is JD.
And this is Dee Dee.
And we are Indigenous21. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk with you guys next time.
Bye.